I had met Sam just 2 years ago on a road trip to the Grand Canyon with our friends, and we had clicked since then. We had done over 9 such road trips from Yellowstone to Europe and India, but then we decided to do the Australian Outback. We were young and high on adventure, but all that changed when our car broke down. Hours passed before we saw anyone. The sun was sinking into the dust and I was getting worried. I had heard that it could be days before you would see anyone in the Australian Outback because the place was so deserted. But that is when a truck finally pulled up. The driver, Grant, was about 50, grizzled and lean with sharp eyes that didn't waste a second to check out my body. He offered to help, his voice gravelly, his smile a little too wide. Sam was relieved, but my sixth sense felt that something was wrong. "Maybe we should wait for someone else, Sam. I don't know." Sam laughed it off. I tried to let it go, but the whole time we drove with Grant my eyes kept drifting to his hands on the wheel, his fingers tapping out an odd rhythm. He'd glance in the mirror and check me out. His questions were strange, too personal, probing as if he were peeling us apart one layer at a time. We stopped at a small shack for gas from where he got us water. He must have slipped something into it because even though I did not drink the water, Sam did. Soon after, his eyes started to droop and his words started to slur. Back on the road, Sam's head lulled, his hand slipped from mine and my pulse spiked. That's when Grant's face changed. He didn't bother with smiles anymore, just yanked the van off the road saying that there was a puncture. But the next moment, he opened my side of the door and slammed a red on my head. He then pulled out a set of cable ties, tied our hands, our feet, even gagged us. He dragged us into the back of the van and I realized how well prepared he was. This wasn't the first time. Night fell as he drove us deeper into the desert, farther from the highway, from any hope of rescue. I lost track of time, sinking in and out of a fog of terror. When the van finally stopped, Grant opened the back doors. He grabbed Sam first, dragging him out, and I watched helpless as he tied him to a post in the sand. He turned back to me, his voice low. "Grant, don't even think about running, beautiful. Just sit tight on those lovely thighs of yours." As soon as he was out of sight, I forced myself to move, working the cable ties against the rough metal floor. It was slow, agonizing, but the ties finally snapped and I slipped out of the van. I ran into the thick shrubs by the side, concealing myself just as Grant turned back. From my hiding place I watched him walk back to Sam, his face twisted into something cold and inhuman. He began taunting him, but Sam was disoriented from whatever he had mixed in his water. "Grant, come out now, beautiful, into my arms or the snakes and spiders will get those thick legs of yours." Then came the sounds, the dull thud of fists, the snap of bone. I pressed my hands to my mouth, tears streaming as I watched Grant torture Sam, trying to lure me out, but all I could do was crouch there in the dirt, praying. He prowled the scrub with a flashlight, sweeping it across the desert floor. Each time the light passed over me, I stopped breathing, my muscles clenched to stone. Grant took his time, enjoying the hunt, calling my name in a mocking tone that made my skin crawl. I sat there until morning, too afraid to move. My throat was raw from thirst, my mind barely holding on. Finally I stumbled back to the road, hoping for a miracle. Hours later a small truck appeared on the horizon, a dusty speck growing closer. I staggered into the road, waving my arms, and collapsed as the driver pulled over. I woke up in a hospital 2 days later, swarmed by police officers. They set out a hunt and it took them 2 weeks to finally catch Grant. Unfortunately, Sam's body was never found and Grant did not speak a word of it. The story draws inspiration from real life.